welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. As Prime Minister Modi completes 3 years in governance, we are here to talk about his government and also the road ahead. Because most people are saying he's here not just for 2 years, but for 5 more years. So 7 more years of this government. What is the Prime Minister's roadmap? So joining me in this on the roundtable is Radhika Ramaseshan. She's a consulting editor with the Business Standard. We have Dr. Sanjaya Baru. He's an author. He's a political commentator and a former editor. We have Shahid, Siddiqui, an editor and also a political commentator. And Siddharth, Varadarajan. He's a founding editor of the Wire.in. Dr. Baru, I'll begin with you. Take a look at the record of the past 3 years. You know, we've all been discussing that when Modi would come in, he didn't come in with any big bang reforms, but he would take what we call small incremental steps. What do you say of his steps so far?
Well, when I look back on these 3 years, I'm now convinced that for Prime Minister Modi, the primary objective of his first 3 years was to ensure a second term. In other words, the objective was primarily political. And I don't think, because the focus, as I've written very often, the focus in the first 1 year was not on the economy. Either because they thought there was problems with the economy were not as big as they later discovered them to be. The foreign policy initiatives were essentially aimed at bolstering the Prime Minister's image essentially at home, using the international image. So in my judgment, the first 3 years of the Modi government have all been about one objective, Congress Mukta Bharat in 2019, and a second term for the BJP, because I think the BJP believes that this is a turning point in the Indian history, that this is not simply, you know, one election you win, one election somebody else wins. It's not ordinary anti-incumbency that then turns around, that this is actually a turning point. The Congress is in historic decline and you need an alternative to the Congress at the national level. So if you look at it from that point of view, then it's a great success, because today everybody says after UP election that this government, you yourself said not 2 years but next 7 years. I think they're there. Now what they do with it in the next 2 years and over the next 7 years remains to be seen, because I think the economy certainly needs more attention than it has received.
Chaisa, what do you say about, do you see him here for the next 7 years?
I can't say whether he'll be there for 7 years, but what I can say is that his biggest success has been that in spite of not doing much, in spite of the fact that the economy has not done well, neither Sabka Vikas nor Sabka Saath has been there, he has been able to keep his image not only intact, but it has grown. And one of the reasons, as Mr. Baru said, was that there is virtually no one to challenge him in Indian politics at the moment. Indian politics, not only in Congress, but the left politics is in disarray. All the old leaders from Lalu to Mulayam Singh to Sharad Pawar, all are virtually finished or on the verge of getting finished. So there is only one leader there. Modi, by default also, he has succeeded, not only because of his own politics. So that way Modi has done very well. Politically he has done well. In every other field I have my doubts. We will discuss that during the discussion. But major issue today before him, he has won UP, all right. But if you are not able to keep your own people in check, then I fear that 2019 may not be that easy.
But this is very interesting, you know, Siddharth, nature abhors a vacuum. So if the opposition is not giving the opposition, will he find it within his own party?
No, I don't think that there is any likelihood of a serious challenge to Mr. Modi within the BJP or the Sangh Parivar. I think that he is really an undisputed leader, and the hope that some people nurture that a challenge may come from the RSS, that there is some difference between him and the RSS, is also wishful thinking on their part. It's not true. I will, however, resist the temptation to speculate about 7 years or another term, because 2004 is still fresh in our minds, when the entire media argued on similar lines, that there was no leader tall enough as Vajpayee or Advani. The Congress was in shambles. Back then, right now we're at least acknowledging that Modi hasn't done much in the economy. The discourse in 2004 was that India was shining, right? And everybody predicted, and we know the outcome which came, which really surprised everybody, above all surprised the Congress, who had no leader. They had to then produce, as Sanjay has described in his book, how an accidental PM emerged from that, right? So I would say, there's plenty of uncertainty still left in Indian politics. But I want to elaborate on something Sanjay said, which is that the purpose of Mr. Modi's first term seems to be to get a second term. And the way he's done it, he won the political fight, and how? In the 2014 election, decimated the Congress, decimated other parties. What he then began to do was to encroach upon the autonomy of other institutions, other sources where checks and balances traditionally exist in the Indian political system. So the judiciary, the autonomy. His very first decision was to undermine the autonomy of the TRAI by changing the rules that govern the chairman of the TRAI to allow himself to have Mr. Nipendra Mishra and PMO. Right? He had within his first day he passed an ordinance. Right? So from then on, changing the way the Supreme Court, trying to change the way judges are selected, attacking the autonomy of universities, any arena where there could be some kind of a challenge, he's taken care of that. He has used the CBI, he's used investigative agencies in much the same way that previous governments have done, perhaps even further, to keep in check leaders like Mamata Banerjee, even Mr. Naveen Patnaik in Odisha, letting off Amit Shah from the Sohrabuddin case. So the use of the CBI in a strategic way, and there's nobody to call out. The media is silent about it.
So we've seen the CBI being used by the Congress also. We take it for granted now.
The difference being that the headlines in every paper was the CBI as a caged parrot, right? In the last 2 years of Manmohan's time, we all referred in our headlines to media as CBI as a caged parrot. Please tell me one channel or one newspaper which refers to the CBI today in the same way. Whereas it's still a caged parrot, if anything, it's even more encaged. Right? So that's what is helping Mr. Modi propel himself towards the second term. And I think we need to be clear about all of these factors.
Okay. Radhika?
The remarkable thing about Modi, who I have been watching since 94, 93 in fact, is how quick he is to learn from his mistakes. When he got this 2014 mandate, if you remember, there was an image which struck all of us. Him flying to Delhi to take oath in an Adani plane, and that Adani logo was flashed, almost amounting to a surrogate ad. That was criticized. I mean, media was a little more unkind to Modi then than it is now. So then he kind of quickly realized that this didn't make for good optics, and he should be he should be more cautious about flaunting his association with friends. Which is not to say that Adani doesn't continue to be his friend or he has not benefited from this government. Certainly. Then you had that famous monogrammed suit of his, So there was a certain arrogance, a certain self-assumption about himself, which I think got a big jolt when he lost the BJP lost the Delhi elections against all expectations. And then Bihar was the second big shock. So Modi then realized that he has to reconfigure his politics and the dynamics and everything. And he's been fairly successful after that. I mean, until, of course, the UP sweep. So electorally, yes, he's had a run. It's been quite a breeze for him. But governance is a little different from winning elections. And if you talk to bureaucrats privately, they are not very comfortable with this government for various reasons. They feel that everything is vested in the PMO, and the other ministries, barring surface transport, is the only ministry which is mentioned as something that runs on its own steam. The other ministries are almost dud ministries. So there is just too much control vested in the PMO, and that may work to the detriment of the government in the long run. I think. The long run meaning in the next 2 years itself, the aberrations could unfold.
Has Modi been able to distance? Is he still campaigning or is he also governing?
Oh, he's certainly doing both. That's the whole point. That after Indira Gandhi, he is really the first Prime Minister who is both a popular leader at a mass level and completely in control of the government, right? Even Vajpayee did not have this element of control over his government because it was a real coalition in which there were autonomous ministries like in UPA. So when you have an Indira Gandhi kind of person, like a Narendra Modi kind of Prime Minister, then you are both political personality and a head of government at the same time. So it's not a question of which is. But as I said, I think given the fact that this is now a historic shift in Indian politics, and I don't think 2004 parallel holds at all, because we forget the fact that in 2004 there was a Congress party. There was a Congress party in Andhra Pradesh, there was a Congress party in Madhya Pradesh, there was a Congress party in Rajasthan, there was a Congress party even in Uttar Pradesh. Today, and Maharashtra, where is the Congress party? So the past is no guide to the future. I therefore think that as far as Mr. Modi is concerned, he sees himself as the harbinger of a historic shift in the dynamics of Indian politics. And so he will always be a political personality. But as Radhika has just mentioned, he's a practical enough politician to know that unless you deliver some jobs, unless you deliver something on the ground before the next election, the voter is not going to be always loyal to you, because the voter is not ideological, right? Most voters vote out of a sense of whatever they feel at the time of election. And therefore, he has to deliver on the ground. And I assume that in the next 2 years, that would be his focus. That has to be his focus.
What should be his priority focus for the next 2 years?
Economy has to be the priority.
Jobs.
The jobs have to be the priority, because ultimately people voted for him because people were fed up of a, say, weak Prime Minister who was not his own person, and people felt that if you will have a strong person at the helm of affairs, the economy will do well, you will move fast. This aspirational India which voted for Congress in 2004 and 2009 was voting for Modi now. But now on that front, I feel that Modi has not been able to deliver, although still the honeymoon is still on. The longest honeymoon anybody ever had is Mr. Modi. Even Indira Gandhi didn't have that kind of honeymoon, because Indira Gandhi, as you were mentioning it, after Indira Gandhi, he is the Prime Minister who controls both politics and the government. So I believe that if he is not able to, honeymoon I feel will be over now. Next 2 years will be the real test for Modi in terms of governance. He talked of minimum governance, we don't see that. He talked of delivery, we don't see that. He talked of jobs, we don't see that. So in that case, and even on foreign policy situation, terrorism, Pakistan, China,
Kashmir.
We have not been able to make a dent. It's all right, Jappi, Pappi is okay for some time. People feel very good about it. But beyond that, you have to show that where you have made your enemies, turned your enemies into friends and your friends into your allies. That I don't see happening. So next 2 years are going to be the real test, and then we will be able to see 2009, because already one problem is that media has always been the undoing of great leaders.
Siddharth, do you want to?
Yeah, no, I would just add that the Modi strategy, which is, as Baru says, get re-elected, centers around primarily being perpetually in campaign mode, as he's identified. Secondly, doing everything you can to weaken an already weak opposition, and using investigative agencies if that is required. You can see very selective, so I'm all for great investigations. The CBI should go after Veerbhadra, Karti Chidambaram. I would also like them to go after the people involved in the Maharashtra irrigation scam. That's not happening. That's not happening. Or the Vyapam scam. That's not happening because they're either your own party people or they are people within NCP that you want to protect because they're a future ally, right? So the third leg of this is polarization. The selection of Yogi Adityanath in Uttar Pradesh was an admission 2.5 years before the election by Mr. Modi that I am not going to be in a position to deliver on any of my socio-economic promises to the electorate of Uttar Pradesh. So what's my Stepney? What's my plan B? Plan B is that you have a guy like Yogi Adityanath, who has zero administrative experience, who is an intensely polarizing figure, a man against whom you have criminal cases, and who then misuses his authority as CM to ensure that those cases disappear, right? So that's your plan B. And, I think as the non-performance of the government on the economic front, on the jobs front becomes more and more apparent closer to 2019, all these incidents that we see in Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, communal incidents, you're going to see, unfortunately, an increase in these, the use of these now in a more strategic manner. And I would say, Shahid Bhai is right, create jobs, Mr. Modi. The second would be, please, for heaven's sake, maintain law and order here. Don't allow, you can't have the excuse now that this is a state subject. The majority of states in this country are under the BJP's control, right? And you pride yourself on running a disciplined party. If Mr. Modi picks up the phone and tells Adityanath, I want this done, Adityanath cannot defy him, or he better not, right? Despite the PM enjoying that kind of unparalleled authority that we haven't seen since Indira Gandhi's time, right? We have such a lax approach and attitude towards law and order, and which leads me to believe that there is some method in the madness.
You've been traveling UP also a lot, do you see Yogi Adityanath here just for 2019 as a prop to polarize? Or?
Yogi has not got any, forget a grip, he hasn't even got a toehold in administration so far. And I would assume that both Modi and Amit Shah are trying to run the government because there's just too much at stake in Uttar Pradesh. I mean, getting all 73 seats back in 2019 is a very tall order. That's probably not going to happen. But even if they salvage, say, 65 or something, that would be good enough for them. So UP is therefore very crucial. Yogi, on the other hand, is extremely popular on the ground. I mean, you talk to the autowalas or the vendors and everybody says that he's doing a great job. He's had the lal battis removed from ministers' vehicles, and he's incorruptible.
No, why I mentioned Yogi that now he's gone in for the populist choice in UP rather than his administrative
So Yogi will try to maintain that,
as he did in other states.
Yeah, he will try to maintain the populist momentum until 2019. So I doubt if they will replace him until 2019. After that, I don't know what happens. But the long and the short of it is, he doesn't seem like governance material to me at all. It's BJP has other good choices in Dinesh Sharma, Surya Pratap Shahid. They are not spoiled for choice or anything of that kind. But it's just that Yogi is popular on the ground. I do not see them tampering with Yogi until 2019.
Okay, we're going to take a break, but after that, with Prime Minister Modi, we can always expect the unexpected. So what is that out of the box thing that he can do in the next 2 years? That's what we're going to focus on. Welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are here discussing the 3 years of Modi government and also what's going to happen in the next 2 years, road ahead. Dr. Baru, is there something that he can do out of the box? He's done demonetization for UP. What would he do now for the general elections?
Well, I don't know if he's started thinking about general elections already, but I do expect the unexpected on the economic front. I think we're going to see a massive campaign on disinvestment, privatization, raising enough funds for government to be able to spend in programs that will then be electorally popular. I do expect to see, already this morning it's been announced that FIPB is being shut down. So I think a major movement on the economic front is what I expect to see in the next year, because I think there is a recognition that this is a move that needs to be made now in order to be then able to claim something for the government by the time of the election. On the foreign policy front, some interesting things are happening. I mean, this sudden relationship with Germany following an earlier investment in Japan, because of the entire redefinition of international politics after Trump, gives me the impression that we are now entering a very interesting new phase in Indian foreign policy with what I call the middle power alliances. Erdogan was here from Turkey, Prime Minister is going second time to Germany, the Japanese Prime Minister will be coming here. So a coalition of middle powers, because the United States has become unpredictable. As long as Trump is there, it will remain an unpredictable country. China has become difficult, and Russia is caught between the US and China, and therefore its focus is entirely in that triangle and not on India. So what does India do given this situation? I actually expect to see interesting new initiatives on the foreign policy front.
Interesting initiatives on the foreign policy front. What else can he do?
I don't know what else can he do, because everything is not in your control. People want to do a lot of things, but you can't do everything you want to do. But if he has to do anything, he has to do now. The biggest thing he did was demonetization. Demonetization did not do as much harm as pundits were predicting, but it has not also benefited much. The economy didn't get the boost. You may get more taxpayers, but that doesn't help. That doesn't create jobs. That doesn't bring in the money and the investment. So investment, as was expected with Modi, has not come. So what he has to do in next few months. If he doesn't do in next few months, then you don't have the time to really implement your economic policies on the ground and give the impression that economy is moving fast, infrastructure is developing, the jobs are there, industry is growing. That has to be done. That should have happened a year back. Second year, all the difficult decisions should have been taken. But if you take some of the difficult decisions now, then controversial issues you take up, then you will have you're taking a risk. So I don't know what exactly he can do, but he is capable of bringing a rabbit out of his pocket, not his head, but what kind of rabbit would it be? And rabbit will be helpful to you, or it will make you run.
Rabbit. Siddharth, any words on what he could possibly, you said what he should do, all valid points, law and order, economy, foreign policy.
I'm not optimistic on either the economic or the foreign policy front. I think Sanjay, Dr. Baru raises an interesting element to what is unfolding. But the harsh reality is that in the past 3 years, not entirely for Mr. Modi's method of leadership or his fault, but our relations with pretty much every country or major power has either worsened or not improved beyond what it was, or the trajectory it already was on in 2014, right? Germany, Japan, things were already on an upswing. With Russia, with China and Pakistan, things are worse. With some of our neighbors, things are either on an even keel or worse. So I'm not sure on the foreign policy front, A, what kind of rabbit he'll pull out of a hat, and secondly, whether this really matters to the electorate. People want jobs, and it's a little late in the day, given that you haven't created these jobs over the past 3 years, for you to now, even the kind of investments, or let's assume that a huge amount of money is raised through disinvestment, to invest them, to have that money put in job creation, there's a lead time involved. So I think that, this vast youth bulge that he made promises to, and he hasn't delivered, will have to be fed something else. And that's where I worry about the violence and the kind of the mobilization around nationalism and all of these kinds of things. They serve a certain strategic purpose. But I wouldn't rule out, Mr. Modi, if I pluck an idea out of the hat, if he were to go in the next election and come up with some kind of, ultimately some kind of symbolic gesture. Vote for me and I will formally change the name of India to Bharat in the constitution. Nobody can oppose him on that, right? So it doesn't really change anybody's life, whether, what the country is called in the constitution, but he may say, I'm standing up for national pride. So I think that he will rely more on these kinds of symbolic gestures.
Something like uniform civil code may come up with, which may again polarize more, which won't really affect anything, but it will help him politically.
Which also explains all the
focus. But like this business about you to mention this uniform civil code, which impinges on the rights and interests and security of the minorities. Already in Uttar Pradesh, you're hearing something very, people are saying that, Muslims have quietened down everywhere. Bilkul kuch nahi bol rahe hain, shant hai. So you need the other, so to speak, in order to mobilize the Hindus is getting,
how do you polarize?
Reaction from Muslims, then reaction will come.
Polarization will stay only if you keep adding to it, if you keep stoking it, if you keep fueling it. Yes. Suddenly, I think the BJP finds that it's not all that easy to keep up that momentum. So I don't know if, of course, on the other hand, in Gujarat, come an election, we've all covered elections in Gujarat.
They were able to keep the
joblessness, about SMEs doing badly, agriculture not doing so well. But come an election and they always vote on Hindu-Muslim lines. So has he created a political Hindu constituency in the rest of the country? I think that will be put to test in 2019.
Hindu constituency which overrides all the caste barriers constantly.
Which you saw in Orissa,
that's where I fear that things like uniform civil code, or they say Article 370.
No, they need a combustible issue to keep that constituency going.
Something like that will be pulled out of the hat.
Everybody talked about
if not Modi's hat, then Amit Shah's hat.
Industry, investments and so on. I think, the BJP is giving a lot of importance to agriculture, because suddenly the Madhya Pradesh model, where, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, which is supposed to have registered a high agricultural growth, is being held up as a template which other states should follow. It's happening in Maharashtra. Devendra Fadnavis, contrary to expectations, is focusing single-handedly on agriculture. He's supposed to have revived water bodies and so on, you know, and Vidarbha, he's trying to pluck Vidarbha.
That was also the Gujarat model.
That's also
Gujarat
the Gujarat
did exceedingly
model.
well on agriculture.
Yeah, in Uttar
Narmada
Pradesh
water
again,
system.
sugarcane, wheat, all these are getting importance. So I guess they think that whatever fillip comes to the economy, big or not so big,
Whichever
will
way.
come from agriculture.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'm afraid we run out of time. But the takeaways really are, with Prime Minister Modi, expect the unexpected. He will do something to get that vote back again. And also the opposition needs to get its act together. Otherwise, it will be almost a walkover for Prime Minister. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.